حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون إنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبة فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب فجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون آية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في فلك مشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في السور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون واليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على أرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدون هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبل كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا تكسبون ولو نشأ لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فإني يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسنا ولو نشاء لمس ولو نشاء لمس ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مزيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا تشكرون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحيي الذي ينشاها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ما شاء الله.
So we will have Raza inshallah recite his Qissa and then we'll resume the program. So we're allowed salawat, let's call Raza. Muhammad.
Before I begin, I would like to ask everyone to do a Surah Fatiha for all Marhoomi and Marhoomat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعوذك بالله يا أبدا من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني وأتيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني وأتيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني يا ثمرة فؤادي وقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك راية طيبة كأنها راية جد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل حسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتعذر لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولد يا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني يا ثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك في رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتعذر لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولد يا شافي أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك راية طيبة كأنها راية أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله يتعذر لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبدا يا رسول الله يتعذر لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي يا عبداتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد ولما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويزنوني ما يزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد
فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرض مهدية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتعذر لي أن أحمد على الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا فقال له نعم قد أذنت لك فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يخرجك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا منهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا ليدركم محبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تعذر لي يا رسول الله فقال رسول الله عليه السلام يا أمين وإلا إنه نعم قد أذنت لك ودخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء اللهم صل على محمد فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد فقال علي الأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر قبلنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا المحبين إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا رب الكعبة فقال بي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر قبلنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا محبين وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مهموم إلا كشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا قضى الله حاجته فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة رب الكعبة
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Jazakallah Raza. I'll tell my brother. Next, I would like to request on mic to come recite something for us. Loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ایک سلوات کا سہارا دیں.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
دن ڈھلے جب کر کے مزدوری رضا آتا ہے باپ. دن ڈھلے جب کر کے مزدوری رضا آتا ہے باپ. دیکھ کر ہنستے ہوئے بچوں کو سکھ پاتا ہے باپ. سامنے آنکھوں کے جس بیٹی کے مر جاتا ہے باپ. لمحہ لمحہ زندگی بھر اس کو یاد آتا ہے باپ. جانے کتنے خواب کرتے ہیں سفر بچے کے ساتھ. گھر سے پہلی بار جب اسکول لے جاتا ہے باپ. عمر بھر رہتی ہے اس بیٹی کے دل میں ایک خلش. جب ترقی دیکھنے پہلے سے مر جاتا ہے باپ. تھام کر انگلی جسے چلنا سکھایا مدتوں. ایک دن اس کے سہارے کو ترس جاتا ہے باپ. جب نمایاں کامیابی چومے بیٹی کے قدم. نظر دلواتی ہے ماں سجدے میں گر جاتا ہے باپ. زندگی بھر چلتا رہتا ہے مشینوں کی طرح. موت کی گودی میں ایک دن تھک کے سو جاتا ہے باپ. روتے روتے بس یہی کہتا ہے وہ ہائے حسین. جب کبھی اپنے جوان بیٹے کو دفناتا ہے باپ. کوئی ان بچوں سے پوچھے کیا ہے شادی کا مزہ. بیاہ کی تاریخ رکھ کر جن کی مر جاتا ہے باپ. مانگنے آتی ہے جب دربار میں باغے فدا. ہم زدہ بیٹی کو جانے کتنا یاد آتا ہے باپ. روز عاشورا بنا دیتی ہے ماں سکا ہمیں. ایک چھوٹا سا اٹھانے کو علم لاتا ہے باپ. رو کے زینب نے کہا بابا بھرا گھر لوٹ گیا. جب شب شام غریباں میں نظر آتا ہے باپ. کیا کہوں گا حال اصغر پوچھ بیٹھی جو رباب. آگے جاتا ہے کبھی پیچھے پلٹ آتا ہے باپ. ہونے ہی والی ہے اس شام غریبا کی سحر. بازوؤں کو چوم کر بیٹی کو سمجھاتا ہے باپ. قید خانے میں ہوا کوہرام بچی مر گئی. خواب میں ایک شب سکینہ کو نظر آتا ہے باپ. یہ عزاداری کا صدقہ ہے جو برزخ میں رضا. مجلسوں میں روتے ہیں ہم اور جزا پاتا ہے باپ.
Next, I would like to request the Burkhan uncle to please come recite something. Lam Salawat.
اور ابھی میں خدا ختم بھی آواز بلند سلوات.
سورہ فاتحہ پڑھ دیجیے. ظہیر سید ظہیر رضوی ولد سید راحت حسین و جملہ مومنین و مومنات. اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین. ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین. اهدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. قل هو اللہ احد اللہ الصمد لم یلد ولم یکن له کفوا احد. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. قل هو اللہ احد اللہ الصمد لم یلد ولم یکن له کفوا احد. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. قل هو اللہ احد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. بهذه بلند صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
جس طرف کروں سجدے اس قدر سوا مانگوں، جس طرف کروں سجدے اس قدر سوا مانگوں، مل گیا در حیدر اور خدا سے کیا مانگوں، کچھ طلب ہی کرنا ہے گر خدا سے اے عزت، کچھ طلب ہی کرنا ہے گر خدا سے اے عزت، دولت ارم کیا ہے خاک کربلا مانگوں، صلوات محمد زامن فصل بہاراں ہے گلستان کے لیے، یہ مرحوم جوہر سرسوی کا لکھا ہوا کلام ہے۔ زامن فصل بہاراں ہے گلستان کے لیے، کربلا امن کا پیغام ہے انسان کے لیے، زامن فصل بہاراں ہے گلستان کے لیے، کون ہے حوصلہ بردوش مثال شبیر، کون ہے حوصلہ بردوش مثال شبیر، اپنا غم بھول گیا جو غم انسان کے لیے، زامن فصل بہاراں ہے گلستان کے لیے، چل کے آبے دم شبیر پہ کچھ اہل وفا، چل کے آبے دم شبیر پہ کچھ اہل وفا، دعوت فکر و نظر دے گئے انسان کے لیے، دعوت فکر و نظر دے گئے انسان کے لیے، کربلا امن کا پیغام ہے انسان کے لیے، اور مدتیں گزری مگر آج بھی قتل شبیر، مدتیں گزری مگر آج بھی قتل شبیر، ایک ناسور ہے تہذیب مسلمان کے لیے، کربلا امن کا پیغام ہے انسان کے لیے، مقصد جن کے دم سے ہوا آزاد ضمیری کا چلن، جن کے دم سے ہوا آزاد امیری کا چلن منتخب ہوتے ہیں جو ہر وہی زندہ کے لیے منتخب ہوتے ہیں جو ہر وہی زندہ کے لیے کربلا امن کا پیغام ہے انسان کے لیے زامن فصل بہارا ہے گلستان کے لیے صلوات بر محمد شکریہ بہت
Barakallah. Now I would like to request an uncle to please come recite something for us. Allahu Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
بر حبیب خدا ختم انبیاء واضح بلند صلوات. ایک اور جاگتی ہوئی صلوات کا سہارا دیجیے. ایک فاتحہ پڑھ دیں مرحوم ظہیر رضوی ابن سید راحت حسین رضوی اور اپنے ساتھ. نعرہ صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
لہد میں دارے لہد میں دارے غم شے کی روشنی ہوگی لہد میں دارے غم شے کی روشنی ہوگی ہماری موت جو ہوگی وہ زندگی ہوگی ہماری موت جو ہوگی وہ زندگی ہوگی لہد میں بغیر الفت آل نبی جو ہوگی نماز بغیر الفت آل نبی جو ہوگی نماز وہ بندگی نہیں توہین بندگی ہوگی لہد میں نہ آسمان نہ کسی شے نشی سے نکلے گا، نہ آسمان نہ کسی شے نشی سے نکلے گا، علی کے عشق کا سورج یہیں سے نکلے گا، علی کے عشق کا سورج جبھی سے نکلے گا جہاں جہاں پہ بھی پہرے بٹھائے جائیں گے، جلوس ماتم سرور وہیں سے نکلے گا، جلوس ماتم سرور وہیں سے نکلے گا۔ یہ کربلا ہے، یہ کربلا ہے، اسے دیکھ لیں جہاں والے، یزیدیت کا جنازہ یہیں سے نکلے گا، یزیدیت کا جنازہ یہیں سے نکلے گا۔ ایک سلوات کا شہید کربلا بابا غریب بے وطن بابا شہید کربلا بابا غریب بے وطن بابا بیان کرتی تھی یہ سورا بیان کرتی تھی یہ سورا میرے بے کفن بابا غریب بے وطن بابا تمہاری پیاس کے صدقے تہے خنجر بھی امت نے دیا نہ بوند بھر پانی تمہیں اے تشنہ لب بابا شہید کربلا بابا غریب بے وطن بابا بیان کرتی تھی یہ صبرا میرے بے کفن بابا حسن کو زہر پلوایا पंजतन बाबा शहीद करबला बाबा अगर हमरा मैं होती अगर हमरा मैं होती तुम्हारी लाश पर रोती अगर हमरा मैं होती तुम्हारी लाश पर रोती गदाएं करके पहनाती तुम्हें दो गज कफन बाबा शहीद करबला बाबा गरीबुल बेवतन बाबा बयां करती थी ये सुगरा मेरे बेकफन बाबा शहीद करबला बाबा
Next, before I call Maulana for his lecture, I would like to ask Pablo if you want to recite mercy. Esaal-e-Sawab. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
बुलंद सलावत
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद और हबीब खुदा खत्म अंबिया आवाज बुलंद सलवात
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला
और इससे एक जागती भी सलवात का सहारा दीजिए ना
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
ایک سورہ فاتحہ کی درخواست ہے پورا معلومات کے لیے خصوصاً اور مرحوم علی ظہیر رضوی ابن سید راحت حسین رضوی سوری چار مصرے ہیں پہلے پھر مرثیہ کہتا ہوں تمہیں دنیا سے چلا لے کے جو نام حیدر دنیا سے چلا لے کے جو نام حیدر جنات کو چلا پہرے سلام सलाम अरे रोका जो रफीकों ने तो रिजवान ने कहा आने दो इसे ये है गुलाम सूरह फातिहा कारवाने सैयदे अबरार लो चुका कर को बला में दीन का गुलजार लो चला बन में रियाज है दरे करार लो चला जंगल में बागे अहमदे मुख्तार लौट चुका जंगल में बागे अहमदे मुख्तार लौट औलाद फातिमा पर जफाओं का दौर है आले नबी के घर में बलाओं का दौर है आले नबी के घर में बलाओं का दौर लाशें पड़े हुए हैं शहीदों के खाक पर जालिम जला चुके हैं नबी शादियों का घर सैदानियां है नर गए आराम नांगे सर तो और बेड़ी बहने हैं सजाद नाम अरे तो और बेड़ी बहने हैं सजाद अरे बारिश तो सर कटाए हुए रन में सोते जुल्मों सितम हुसैन के कुन बेपा होते हैं जुल्मों सितम हुसैन के कुन बेपा हो अरे आधा चले हैं कूफे को मकतल की राह से लाशें शहीदों के हैं जहां पर पड़े हुए रन की जमीन हिलती है ज़ैनब के बहन कहती थी जाने फातिमा सदके बहन तेरे अरे कहती थी जाने फातिमा सदके बहन अरे किस्मत ये सानेहा हमें भाई दिखाती है बेदफन छोड़ कर तुम्हें हम शीर जाती है बेदफन छोड़ कर तुम्हें हम शीर अरे रोकर सकीना बोली मेरी जान जाती है ये लाश मेरे कल्बो जिगर को हिलाती है मरने वाले बेकसी तेरी रुलाती अरे बाबा के खून की बू मुझे लाश से अरे बाबा के खून की बू मुझे लाश से अरे ज़ैनब पुकारी कूफे के मेहमान की लाश है अरे बेटी करो सलाम के अम्मू की लाश है बेटी करो सलाम के अम्मू की लाश अरे फिर बोलियां सलाम अलैके असीर गम गुर्बत में भाई तुम भी हुए राहे अदा तुम पर किए हैं खूबियों ने आजा अरे गुस्लो कफन न तुमको दिया करके सर अरे गुस्लो कफन न तुमको दिया करके सर अरे कुनबे से ऐसे बिछड़े जहां से गुजर गए रास्ता न देखा भाई का पहले ही मर गए जब कारवाने सैयद
रबी में खुदा खत्म की आवाज है बुलंद सलवात
Before I call Maulana Syed Abedi to come recite his lecture, I just want to say thank you from behalf of the community. Since today is his last day reciting lecture, he's going back to New York. We hope to see you again, and inshallah, may you keep all of us in our du'as. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين حبيبي إله العالمين أبي القاسم مصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد
وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المنتجبين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباكر يا مظلوم يا غريب. أما بعد قال الله في كتاب المحكم الكريم قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. Say, O Muhammad, that you ask nothing in return except for the love of my family. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent and the most merciful, the one who has blessed us with the Rahmat al-Alameen, the mercy to mankind, Muhammad al-Mustafa. And bless us with the reliance of his inheritor, Ali Imam Ali, alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the blessed progeny, Ali Muhammad, and the blessed members of Ahlul Bayt. And lastly, we send our salam to the master of our time, Sa'ad al-Asr wa Zaman, Anjur al-Ta'ala. Dear brothers and sisters, respected guests, to the 8 old malaika that are joining us today, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's a very beautiful tradition that's attributed to Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam. And one day he addresses his followers and he says that on the day of judgment, we shall hold on to Rasulullah and you shall hold on to us. So where do you think you will be? He asked this question, so he says, where do you think you will be if you're holding on to us while we're holding on to Rasulullah? There's only one place you can be, Jannah. To remember this is something we should remember for the rest of our lives, to understand why we follow Ali Muhammad and who told us to respect them, Rasulullah himself and Allah himself, for there is vicegerents on earth. But to go beyond that, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, he says that for those who say that they're Shia, saying that they love us is not enough. Remember this and pay attention to this. He says, saying that you love us is not enough. For to ones who say they're Shia, to be one of the Shia, you have to first and foremost be the defender of Tawheed, the oneness of God, the trust in God. But second, he says that our Shia are the ones who are the utmost and the first and foremost in humility, in trustworthiness, in helping others, and helping the poor, helping the needy, taking care of the orphans, taking care of your neighbors, in prayer and in fasting, and in truthfulness. And nothing comes out of their tongues except truthfulness. And they hold back their tongues from anything that is not the truth or anything that is good. And they're the ones who people trust in their affairs. This is what it means to be of those who are the Shia. These are the words of Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam. And they're the ones who are the most abundant in the remembrance of our one true God. But for us to understand today, we're here to honor his martyrdom. And to honor his martyrdom, we have to remember that we have to carry on his legacy. And by honoring his words in our everyday life, that's how we'll honor him. As I mentioned yesterday, I'll mention this again today. And this is the best thing that we can do in our lives. So today we're here to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. He is an imam of who I can try to speak forever and I'll never reach an inch of what he was. For what we'll talk about today is only a drop in the ocean of what was Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. For our tongues cut short in praises because we can never praise him enough for what he had done for Islam, what he had done for humanity. He is the one who Rasulullah himself sent his praises and salam to. We have a tradition which tells us one day Jabir, one of the oldest companions who was still alive in time of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam and Imam Zaheer alayhi salam, from the time of Rasulullah, he was sitting in the masjids and he used to cry, where is al-Baqir? Where is al-Baqir? And people used to say, this man has gone crazy. Who is he crying for? He used to stay in the masjid. He says, Rasulullah told me, al-Baqir will come to this ummah. The one who splits knowledge, al-Baqir. And eventually, he ended up losing his eyesight. But he would stay in the pillar of the masjid crying out, where is al-Baqir? One day he went into the home of Imam Zain alayhi salam, and he sees a young boy. And he sees his features and he sees that he reminds him just like Rasulullah was. And he knows because he was alive in time of Rasulullah. And he says, who is this young boy? Imam Zain alayhi salam. He says, he is al-Baqir, Muhammad al-Baqir, the one who will take my position after me. He is the one who will split knowledge. He says, this is the one I have been waiting for. The one that Rasulullah sent his salams to. He told me, you will wait and you will come to a time when you will see my grandson al-Baqir. He will be the one who was promised to split the knowledge. And what al-Baqir means is someone who goes and not just splits knowledge. Why do you say al-Baqir? He goes deep into knowledge. He takes out the hidden treasures and spreads it to the people. And this is what Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam did. For during his time, it was the time of the Umayyads. The Ummah itself, the Muslim Ummah, was lost. They did not understand what was the truth and what was the wrong. The Umayyads had given people in the states of ghafla and kept them in a state of ghafla, heedlessness. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't care much about the Islamic rules. The morals that Rasulullah himself had taught were fading away. The akhlaq he had taught was fading away. People were becoming greedy. People were becoming arrogant. What Rasulullah had aimed for the ummah, his framework for unity, love, and compassion, was gone. He himself came, Imam Muhammad alayhi salam, at that time, he was spreading knowledge like no one else had ever spread knowledge before him. Because no one else had the chance. Except Imam Ali alayhi salam, after him, the other imams did not have the chance because they were constantly being attacked, constantly in battles. When it came to Imam Muhammad alayhi salam, the Umayyads themselves were busy amongst themselves fighting. And they were distracted with wars, trying to expand the caliphate, and busy with greed. So they did not have a chance to attack him in the early years. So during that time, he had the chance in the city of Medina to set up the university, which was carried down from the knowledge of Rasulullah. That university, it says by the end of his life, there were 25,000 students who had learned from his sciences, from his knowledge. 25,000 students by the end of Imam Muhammad's life. This is why he was known as a splitter of knowledge. This is why he was known as a splitter of knowledge. And most of the hadith that we have today come from him and his son Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. And it's something we owe him for the knowledge that we have today. And he came at that time, and because he had the availability to spread that knowledge, he took full advantage of it. He spent all day and night talking about the sciences, and not only Islamic knowledge. I'm not talking about Islamic sciences only. Imam Muhammad alayhi salam was talking about science, astronomy, philosophy. He went in depth, mathematics. In fact, most chemistry, most of the sciences that were known today in the world today originated from a student or someone who studied directly under his son, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, or himself. Most of the roots of that knowledge came down from him, especially in the sciences, especially in chemistry. They all came down from him. But the problem today is most of us, or in the world today, in Europe and the West, they honor their scholars. They write books about their scholars. But how many of us have, and I'm speaking to the Muslim Ummah as a whole, have written about the sciences and the knowledge that came from our own luminaries and our Ahlul Bayt and Rasulullah himself? We have done an injustice towards them, honestly speaking. For if the world knew the knowledge came from them, they would see them in a different light. But it's up to us, and I ask everyone here today and anyone who's listening to this, to take up that mantle. Do what we can to show the world who were Al Muhammad, who are the ones that we follow. Because once they see their teachings, they'll come to them themselves. We don't even have to do anything. And this is something we must learn from Al Muhammad and their teachings. Now, now, he teaches us the importance of knowledge and seeking knowledge. And Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam, he wanted to make it easy for us to attain this knowledge ourselves. So we're not dependent on others. He wanted us to be free-thinking individuals who have the capacity to read the books to understand knowledge and to always be in a continuous pursuit of knowledge. You know, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he has a very beautiful hadith. And this is a very important hadith which I want everyone to pay attention to. In this hadith, he says people are of three types. He categorizes all human beings in three types. The first one, he says a human is either Alim Rabbani, that means a divine scholar, or scholar who's taken up the path of knowledge to spread Islamic knowledge, or someone who's from the Aimma. So people are of only three types. Number one, Alim Rabbani. Second one, Muta'allim ala Sabil al-Najat. That means someone who's a student on the path of knowledge. And number three, he says Hamij al-Ra'a, which is, in direct translation, it means an insect that's going with the winds. So basically, what he's trying to say, the last part is someone who goes with the winds. Wherever the ideologies seem good today, he's going to go there. He has no firm values. He has no firm stance. He has nothing in life that keeps him to one path. Wherever is good today, whoever's speaking good today, I'm going to follow him. I'm going to follow him. He just keeps moving around. So I want to ask everyone today, which one of these three can you be, and are you? And if it's something for us to realize, and for us to take from this lecture, and to evaluate our own selves, to see where are we in these three categorizations from Imam alayhi salam, and how we can change this if we're not in the one we want to be in. So the first thing says divine scholars. Not everyone can be a divine scholar. But the second thing he says is everyone who is on the path of knowledge and the student of knowledge. That can be every single human being. And knowledge not only means, of course, in the Islamic sciences, learning about our religion and our deen, but also any path of knowledge will benefit society and ourselves. That's something we have to embark upon for our own selves and for society itself. So we are not of those who just go with the winds. When the new trend comes, we're just going there. When the new person comes and says good, beautiful words, we just follow them. We are Muslims. We are ones who Allah has given us vicegerency upon our own selves. And He has given us a trust. And that trust is the Quran and the teachings of Ali Muhammad for us to understand that we're not people who can just sway with the wind. We must understand we have value, and we cannot just go with whatever we see someone's coming with new trends here and there. We have to have a vision. For example, someone who wears glasses, if they wear the wrong glasses with the wrong lens, what happens? They see their vision is blurry, right? Think about it this way. Wear the glasses, the lens of that debate for the rest of your lives, and see what path they would take for the rest of their lives. And everything in your life, and follow those footsteps, and you'll never ever go astray. You want to find out what is Sirat al-Mustaqim? That is the path of Ali Muhammad. So remember this. And yesterday I was talking about the importance of a survey that was done. And it showed us that 82% of the Muslims in America are youth. And I want to go a step above that today. The survey also tells us that 23% of Muslim Americans are leaving Islam. And it's something we must pay attention to. For many of the reasons I mentioned yesterday, which were, number one, in the youth, they don't have a connection to the masjid anymore, which we have to pay attention to. The topics that they need addressed need to be addressed from the member and from the community themselves. And that's a responsibility we must take. But the second thing is that people, not only youth, but everyone is being distracted by the world around them today in ways which are affecting their hearts and minds and their faith. Atheism is growing in America, and not only in America, in the world, especially even in the Muslim countries and the non-Muslim countries. Any country of faith, atheism is growing because people are feeling distant from religion. They're seeing people do religion just as practices. They're not understanding that faith has to be in one's heart. Their heart is not attached to the faith. And more importantly, they're attaching their happiness to what? To worldly things. You know, 1 out of 10 Americans are depressed, according to the surveys that are done. 1 out of 10 Americans. And that's not the part I want to mention. The part I want to mention is that out of those people who are depressed, 10% of America, there's another survey done to show, out of those 10%, what were the factors causing this depression? The survey showed the people who were the most depressed were those who attached their wants and desires and happiness to materialistic things. And those who were the ones who were the least depressed are the ones who attach their wants, happiness, and desires to what? Non-materialistic things such as faith. Remember this. When Allah says in the Quran, only in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest, it is the truth. It is the truth. you attach your heart to anything else but Allah, your heart will break. And then you will lose faith. And you will feel depressed. Because if you don't understand that Allah Himself, having trust in Him, takes away any sadness you can ever have. Why? Because if you have trust in Allah, the one that made you, the one that He's al-Wakil, what does that mean? That means the one that's there for you, fighting your battles for you, every single day, being your Wakil. And I don't have to translate this word because it means the same thing in Urdu and Arabic here, and in Farsi. It means the one who's taking care of your affairs, the one representing you in your entire life, in everyday life. So remembering that, if something goes wrong in the way you didn't want it to happen, you should be alhamdulillah, because it was not meant for me, it was not good for me. That takes away from our psychological pressure that we have. Why did this not happen? Why did this not happen? As long as you know you have tried your best and it did not happen, know that Allah Himself saved you from something and He's keeping something better for you. So remember this. Have that trust in Allah always. And that's one of the most important things that we have to have. Because once again, people are losing their faith because they see faith as just actions and not as something that's in our hearts. And what is faith? Did faith come to make our lives harder, or did it come to make our lives easier? All of the commandments that Allah has given us, look at it from this perspective. When you go into the market and you buy, for example, an electronic, it comes with an instruction manual, does it not? And the instruction manual tells you, put in these batteries or operate it under these conditions. And if you don't, it may go bad early. Does it not? Look at it this way. Who made us? Allah. Right? He gave us our instruction manual, which is the Quran and the Hadith.
SubhanAllah.
That is our instruction manual. If we want to operate at our prime, to live our best lives, to do the best we can do, who is our manufacturer? It's Allah. It is Him, right? So only we know the best. We think we know what's best for ourselves, but we don't. It is that instruction manual that Allah has given us is what we have to follow in our lives. And trust me, if you follow that path, you will never ever feel depressed. You will never ever feel anything wrong in your life. Because you will have full trust in Allah, if you have full trust in Allah. But if you don't, then you will feel sad. You'll feel depressed. Because you will attach your happiness to materialistic things. You attach your happiness to people, to materialistic things. And as we know, people change, hearts change, materialistic things go away. You know, when we see these earthquakes and when we see these disasters that happen, sometimes people cry about losing their loved ones, but sometimes people cry about losing their houses. What can I do? My life is ruined, my house is gone, my car is gone. Why? Because their heart was so attached to that materialistic thing that they couldn't think about anything else in life anymore. Know that Allah gives and Allah takes. But everything comes from Allah. Have that pure faith in your life, and trust me, you will always be satisfied with life. And that's one of the most important things you have to understand, because religion did not come to make our life hard. Religion came to make our life easier. In fact, we have a hadith, and it's narrated that one day Allah asked, He's having a conversation with Nabi Musa alayhi salam, and He asked Nabi Musa, He said, what have you done for me? Pay attention to this. He says, Nabi Musa says, I pray for you, I fast, I give charity, and I remember you in my du'as. I do all of this for you. Allah says, the prayer that you do is a light in your path. It guides you. It gives you guidance in your life and brings you closer to me. So who is that for? Is it for me or for you? The charity that you do, it's shade from the hellfire. That alms that you give is lights in the darkness. That remembrance you do of me, the dhikr you do of Allah and of me, every time you do it, you get a palace in Jannah.
SubhanAllah.
What do you do for me? What do you do for me? Then Nabi Musa alayhi salam says, what can I do for you? He says, make friends for my sake.
Right.
Remember this. He says, makes friends for my sake with my creations. This is but the most important part of this was that all the things that we say that we're doing for Allah or we think we're doing for Allah are only benefiting us. What is the point of worship? Does Allah want us to just pray all day? That prayer is bringing you closer to Allah each time you pray. And what does it mean getting closer to Allah? Allah is not a physical thing. We can't get closer to Him in proximity. We get closer to Him in the sense that He is justice. Al-Adil, we become more just. He is Ar-Rahman, we become more merciful. All of these things that Allah is, He puts inside of us the qualities. And the more we walk His path, it helps us attain those qualities. Because we can never become closer to something that can't be materialized. Allah is not material. Allah is everywhere, and there's nowhere that He's not. So when we say we want to get closer to Allah, that's what it means in the sense of our worship, our hearts, our spirit is getting closer to Allah, our room is getting closer to Allah. That's what it means. And that's something we have to realize. And that's one of the most important things in our lives. And one of the things that we have to understand is that paying attention, and how do we get closer to Allah is paying attention to the words of the Imams. And they have told us how to do this. You know, one of the hadiths which I love from Imam Muhammad alayhi salam. He says that Allah hates those who request others for help. He loves it when someone comes to Him and asks Him. Allah says He wishes and He loves those who come ask Him. Constantly ask Him. For He is exalted. He says, come to me. For in the Quran, He says, remember me. Call upon me, and I will answer you. Remember this. Call upon me, and I will answer you. We have to be in that state in our lives that we will have to remember Allah in every single aspect of our life. Whenever things are going good and things are going bad. Call upon Allah. Build that relationship. These were all the Rasulullah, all the Anbiya, all the A'immah. They have taught us one thing, is to build that relationship with Allah for the rest of your life, because this will give you peace. Make that dua, because we have a need for Allah. And Allah wants us to supplicate towards Him, because that's how much love He has for us. People, sometimes we don't realize that we think that Allah, most of the times you hear about punishment, you hear about hellfire, you think that Allah is unjust. You don't realize how much love Allah has for the creations. He made us. That love your mother does for you, where do you think it came from? Who put that inside her? Allah. And Allah loves you more than your mother loves you. Allah made all of us. And it's something we must realize, that also the Anbiya themselves and the Imam themselves have so much love for us. You know, one is a hadith that tells us there's a companion who would come always to the lectures of Rasulullah. While Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, while he was giving his lectures, his companion would always walk inside. He would never ask the question, always leave. He would, wherever Rasulullah was, his companion would show up. One day Rasulullah asked him, why do you come and what do you just try to have a conversation with him. He says, I just want to be near you, Rasulullah. I just want to be near you. So you know what the tradition says afterwards? Rasulullah knew this. The companion kept coming and coming and coming. So sometimes when Rasulullah used to see him walk inside, he used to raise his head a little bit from the crowd to make sure he can see him. Because he knew this person wanted to see him. He himself would make himself available to him, make himself known. Because as much as we love Daima, we don't realize how much they love us, how much Rasulullah loved us. He used to weep every single day for this ummah. In fact, he asked Allah to make his Maqam al-Mahmud, the highest position, the gift that he wanted for his service is one thing only. That's to give shifa for his ummah, intercession for his ummah. This was Rasulullah. And the same thing, we have to get closer to Allah through dua. And dua will change your life. It is, the Rasulullah has said, and also the Anbiya has said, that this was the weapon of the prophets. Dua itself was the weapon of the prophets. Remember this. That is the weapon of the prophets that we have in our hands to use, to ask Allah. What better thing can you ever ask for in your life? to have a direct conversation with Allah. And the next beautiful saying, Imam Bakr alayhi salam, he says, he talks about the Quran. And I stress this because the Holy Quran, Rasulullah himself, we cannot remember, he himself has said, I left behind the Quran and Ahlul Bayt. So when we remember the Ahlul Bayt today in their martyrdom, we must remember the Quran because they go hand in hand. Forever they cannot be separated. And there's no remembrance of the Ahlul Bayt, but remembrance of Allah's word, the Quran. And to remember this, Imam Bakr alayhi salam, he has a very beautiful hadith. He says, the best amongst us, the best amongst our followers are those who take the medicine of the Quran and apply it to their hearts. And remember what this means. In our hearts, sometimes we may have arrogance, we may have pride, we may have, as human beings, these things develop over time, and sometimes you're not working on fixing yourself. The Quran itself is medicine for your heart. And the one who does not use the Quran to apply this medicine to his heart has wasted the opportunity. It's like going to the doctor and taking medicine from him for a sickness that you have and not using it. Does that make sense? Would you go to the doctor and not take the medicine if it's something you need to fix yourself with? Allah has given us the Quran as the medicine for our hearts to remember this and to apply it in our hearts, because the more you read the Quran, the more it mixes with your flesh and blood. It becomes part of you. The ethics taught in the Quran. You know, most of the Quran, we always talk about the rules and the ahkam, but most of the Quran is not rules. Most of the Quran is not jurisprudence. Most of the Quran is your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your Creator, your relationship with your community. Ethics, morals, akhlaq. That's what the Quran teaches us. We must mix those ethics and morals with our own flesh and blood. That's how we honor the Ahlul Bayt. That's how we honor the word of Allah. Because, and I urge everyone to pay attention to this, and because sometimes we have the Quran, we open it in Ramadan, we open it for the Majlis, but it collects dust in our homes. And you don't want to stay on the day of judgment and say to Allah, I did not open the words that you had given us. I did not pay attention to the words you had given us. It's something important you must pay very close attention to. And most importantly, we must understand as Muslims, we must learn the meaning of the Quran. It's a set of rules and guidance for us in our own lives. Many times I've met people who are, while they're having conversations with others from other faiths, they're not able to tell what the Quran says itself. They're not able to say where in the Quran is this, where in the Quran talks about the Christians, where in the Quran talks about the Jews, where in the Quran talks about faith, where in the Quran talks about piety and justice, or the stories from the Quran. And this is something for us to just think about today. What is our relationship with the Quran? And take that home with you and build upon that every single day so the Quran mixes with your flesh and blood. So we become one with the Quran. And that's something that's very, very important for us to realize, because that will change our life. Wow. And this is what the Imams have taught us. You know, all these teachings are teaching us what? To build our relationship with Allah. You know, there is one tradition that tells us one day, Imam Alayhi, while he was at the gathering, he quickly got up and he rushed towards something. And one of the companions followed him. And he says that, where are you going in such a hurry? He says that, I'm going to the one that I long for and the one I desire. That's why I'm in a rush. He says that, who is that? He says, the one I desires and the one I long for knows who he is already. And then he understands what Allah was talking about. So he says that my greed has taken me. How can I become like this? And he says something very, very powerful. He says that just call out to him. He is always there for you. Make your desires aligned with Allah and His grace, and He'll guide you towards that. This is the longing that our Imams had for Ahlul Bayt, for Allah, and Ahlul Bayt had for Allah. Now, with that, We're here to commemorate the martyrdom of Muhammad alayhi salam. And death is something that we must never forget. You know, today, my dear brother took me to see the cemetery that he had built. And it was a reminder that death may come at every day. Death may come at any time, any moment. Imam Alayhi says that every footstep we take, every breath we take is a footstep towards death. It may come at any time. And with that being understood, we must always remember that. And that will help change you for the rest of your life. It's one of the advices all the ulama give to the people. Remember that. You want to become a better human being? Remember that will come one day. Know that life is not promised. This life that we have is here short. Work for the hereafter. And you will seek what you sow over here. That's what you'll reap what you sow. That's what the hadiths tell us. And there's a story that I want to narrate of a man who used to be a sheikh, and he tells us this story. And I want you to keep this in mind when it comes to the topic of death and how it affects people. This man, the sheikh, he says that there was a man who came to me. He told me, "Oh sheikh, I'm going to die. And I'm scared, I'm very scared. And because I know I'm going to die, ever since I found this out, I went to the doctors and I asked them, 'Oh doctor, am I going to die?' The doctor told me I'm going to die." So he says, I was very scared since then, realizing life is short and we don't have much time left in this world. He says, I became a different person. Every time someone bothered me or said something, I would brush it off. And I would understand he's a human being. Life is short. We have more important things to do in life. How many times today when we're driving, someone cuts you off, you get angry? Someone says something, a mu'min or a mu'mina, someone says something to you, or you feel something, even in our own community, it happens multiple times, that we get angry right away, or we want to make it bigger than it is. And we make the small things big because we don't realize that life is short. In those little things, we have to understand people make mistakes. As I said yesterday, that as Imam Alayhi has said, forgive people as you want Allah to forgive you. So the story goes that this person is telling the sheikh that I have changed my whole life because I understand life is short. So he says, after a while, the sheikh asks him a question. He says that, so when are you going to die? Because the doctor said you're going to die, right? He says, I don't know. He says, what do you mean? Didn't you say you're going to die? He says, yes, I went to the doctor and he told me I'm going to die and I can't escape it. But he didn't tell me when. Do you understand? The doctor told him there is no way you can escape that. So that's what he took as, I'm going to die. That realization clicked in his head. And that's what he changed. So as we remember this, as we honor the Ahlul Bayt, through their teachings in our lives, remember this, life is short. And the one we're here to commemorate today, Imam Alayhi-Salam, he dedicated his entire life to serving Allah, spreading knowledge, disseminating knowledge, giving knowledge like no one has ever done before to the people, so that we can live better lives today. Imam Muhammad Alayhi-Salam, he spread so much knowledge that people started realizing that these are the true members of Ali Muhammad. And the Umayyads at that time, he had freedom in the beginning of his life, but towards the end, when Hisham, the Malik, and they came to power, the Umayyads and the Abbasids towards the end, they started realizing if we let him preach, if we let him do what he keeps doing and showing people the truth of Ali Muhammad, we will lose our power. So Imam Muhammad Alayhi Salam, at the age in his late 50s, around the age of 59, some say 57, 58, 59, around that age, he was martyred. Through how? Through poisoning. But Imam Muhammad Alayhi Salam was no stranger to poison. He was no stranger to death. For many who don't know, Imam Muhammad Alayhi Salam was the Imam at the age of 3 years old. He was in the battle of Karbala. At the age of 3 years old, he's seen his grandfather Hussein's body being trampled by the horses. At the age of 3 years old, he's seen Sukaina being martyred in the palace of Yazid. In the age of only 3.5 years old, he's seen in the lands of Karbala his entire family slaughtered. In the age of only 3 years old, he was one of those who was running from tent to tent with all the children of Ali Muhammad were running from different tents. While the tents were being burned, he was one of those running. At the age of 3.5 years old only, when Syed Zainab gathered all of the youth and all of the children today in one tent, and she would take them from one tent to the next tent, he was one of those children. He is the one today, and today we remember all of the Imam. And I remember the Imam yesterday, and we remember many people today. We can go visit their graves. But there's an Imam, and many amongst 4 Imams who are buried in Jannat al-Baqi, that there's no one there today to even light a candle in their grave. These are the 4 Imams of Ahlul Bayt. Today, what has the Ummah done to the grandsons of Rasulullah? Today, there's no one to even light a candle in their grave tonight when his martyrdom happens tomorrow night. There's no one there who can light a candle in his grave. While the tyrants of the world have their funerals with people full of people, there's no one to light a candle in the grave of the grandson of Rasulullah in Allah. I ask Allah to grant us the Shafa of Ahlul Bayt. I ask Allah to make us steadfast and loyal on the path of Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen, and to make us the companions of Imam Sahib al-Asr al-Zaman. I ask Allah to seek forgiveness for our parents and for our own souls, and to heal all those who need to be healed around the world. And may we be of those of the companions of Imam Sahib al-Asr al-Zaman today. And we ask us to recite Fatiha for Syed Zaheer Ali, Ibn Syed Rahat Hussein, Rizvi, and Salawat. Marhoom Hussein.
Ya Hussein, 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 आप लोग आए Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein.